What's up, everybody? Welcome. It's Haberman and MIDDLEKAUFF here on YouTube and podcast, however you consume. If you're watching the YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to the pod, thanks for that. Share it with your friends. And if you want to listen while you watch, or you want to watch and you listen, the link to the other thing than the thing that you're doing right now is in the description. So you can listen, watch that way. What's up, Johnny? Let me get my Tito's helmet.
God, if it wasn't Tuesday at 2 o'clock, I would pour myself a Tito's right now. And I'm not opposed to doing that. Do have some tasks and some chores I got to do the rest of the day, but get on it. Pour yourself a Tito's, have yourself a Tito's, link us in Tito's, enjoy yourself with Tito's. Guy, this is Raiders Niners week. I mean, if you can't have a Tito's during Raiders, and the picture that never gets old to me is the Harbaugh chip tooth talking to Mark Davis at the end of his run with only a couple games left. A lot of speculation even at the time. Would Jim Harbaugh take over the Raiders, who were in need of a new coach at the time, remember? R.I.P. Sperano was like the interim coach, and they were terrible. So, yeah, I mean, this is one of those that, like, they never had when they both were here because there's, like, too much violence. And I always thought, like, I don't know. I thought that was a little overrated. But now they just have joint practices. Completely, we've normalized Niners-Raiders preseason games.
Isn't it crazy, John? We've normalized Niners-Raiders. Actually, hold on. Let me just finish on Tito's before I finish that thought. Tito's, however you love to drink it, like John said, share it, whether you just like a little. You know what Tito himself, the man's name, Tito Beverage. His last name is Beverage. He likes, remember what his favorite drink is, John?
Tito and water?
And a little lemon. Yeah. Oh. You know, we love the John Daly. It's good for maybe Lakeside in Tahoe. Maybe like the espresso martini. It's good for sidling up to the bar. You like a little Tito's and ginger. I love a ginger beer from the fridge. A Tito's and some lime. However you like it. Tito's handmade vodka, baby.
I went to dinner the other day with a guy, a heavy hitter in the booze industry. And he works, for a wine and spirits company that has Tito's under their umbrella here. And he does all of Arizona. He's based in Scottsdale. And let's just say that it's been a lucrative endeavor being partnered with Tito's here in this area. Tito's dominates, guy. The Northern California, Southern California, Vegas, and Arizona. So
distilled and bottled in Austin, Texas, 40% alcohol by volume, namely 80 proof, crafted to be savored responsibly.
Raiders,
Niners. And it's like with Jimmy.
Yeah, with Jimmy.
With Greg Papa doing his radio show, seemingly probably somewhere there.
You'd have to think Mark would be roaming around, right?
Which Mark?
Well, he's fired about 3 other Marks, thinking Mark Davis. I think they've, since you and I were last at a Raiders training camp in Napa, it feels like a lot of that contingent either overpaid the government, lost the Raiders a lot of money, potentially siphoned, allegedly, stole money, did shady shit. I don't know. But Mark Davis, clean house, guy. Clean house. Think how lucky Jed is to just have a Parag, have a Guido, that you just, not just high character people, good at their job, great with money, generate you money, fight the government.
Seem to evolve in their role, right? They don't just stay put, just kind of.
Yeah, exactly. We're buying EPL teams. We're landing Swifties. I mean, we're getting WrestleMania. It's just 2 teams, kind of passing in the night. And Mark used to not want to be the redheaded stepchild, did not want to share the stadium. So he got his help led by Jerry and, the corrupt government, because you don't even need votes. They just voted on their own, which I'm not opposed. Like I said, I'm all for a team. I'm not one of those like, how can you get government money? Well, if you can get it, I'd take it. I mean, fuck. Most humans do. And he did. And from all accounts, as Belichick said last year, is the greatest practice facility he's ever seen.
And that's where they're going to be. They're not at the stadium. They're at the outdoor practice facility. 8 a.m. practices on Thursday and Friday in Vegas. So
people are not. Did you see? I think Jimmy had one of those classic 5 interception days.
I did see that, and Matt, yeah, I did see that. I love the things from practice where it's like Max Crosby called Jimmy a bitch, or there was one in Cowboys practice also, right? With one of what's his name? The guy who picks
it
up
was
all
Diggs
the
to Dak. It was Diggs to Dak.
Today at Niners practice during one-on-ones, Ambry Thomas, Juwan Jennings, go kind of fade, go, but not really a go ball, more like a go fade. I don't know, whatever you'd call it. Like a hold here, ref throws a flag. Another hold, ref doesn't have a flag. Jennings Jennings his hand for a minute. Ambry knocks it out. Ambry, then they're in each other's face. Ambry Thomas tells him, "You're a bum." Jennings says, "That's the first rep you've won in 3 years." Ambry says, "You've never won a go ball on me. Check the tape." It's very good. But yeah, to me, you a bum? A bum? That's just good, clean trash talk right there.
I would agree, because the bitch, I think the Dak Diggs thing felt like it, and it went viral, even though in the heat of the moment, it's like, what? Who really cares? But the bum's pretty solid. I do think the one-on-ones, wide receiver DBs, has a little like basketball feel to it, where it's just some legit, probably good buddies. They'll break bread in an hour, but that's entertaining.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, if that had been captured on film, and this is what kind of has happened a couple times. It gets captured on film. It's like, oh man, that was really negative. But when you're doing, like, it's hot, it's 2 weeks of practice. This is the last day of training camp before you get ready for a preseason game. You go, think of all the reps. You go at it, you go at it, you go at it, you go at it, you go at it. And it's good. You're a bum. Like, that's just good, clean, in your face, but not cheap shot trash talk.
Don't you imagine that, because the 49ers are practicing Thursday, Friday, none of those guys, right, the Trents, the Debos, Bo's not even there, Kittle, Juszczyk, McCaffrey, are playing in this game on Sunday. Are they going out in Vegas Friday and Saturday night, do you think? Like, is there going to be a picture of Trent Williams at a table?
They're flying today. They got an off day tomorrow. League mandated off day tomorrow.
That could be, potentially. There are going to be some pictures surfacing to me with a Debo Trent potential. I could see them rolling together. McCaffrey's now pretty famous. George is pretty loud. I could see. I got those 5 guys. Just some viral pictures, maybe around it. Now Vegas is pretty tight with the phones around the tables. That's one thing they're good at. But I don't know. I definitely walking the strip.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not playing on Sunday and practice ends on Friday, what are you doing on Saturday? Those guys aren't doing shit.
Shanahan said yesterday they talked to the team about betting on the NFL at OTAs. They talked to them at the beginning of camp, and they're going to talk to them again Tuesday before they leave for Vegas. So,
well, they're probably not staying at the Cosmo, right?
Well, they're staying in Henderson.
Okay, so these guys have enough coin to get. Fuck, they could take a helicopter if they needed to, right?
Yeah, I think the casino will send you a car.
Yeah. Especially wait, Debo and Trent make a combined what? Yeah, well, what time do you need the car service?
Do they
the more you make, usually the more you bet.
You think they do room check? That's why it's also good. It's hot, but the 8 a.m. practice is probably smart anyway, right? Especially if you're the Raiders, you kind of live there. But if you're the Niners, if you're Kyle, you probably don't want a 11:30 a 1 o'clock in the afternoon. You want an 8 a.m. practice. Like, fellas, let me look you in your eye when you roll in at 6:30.
Pretty big day for Colton McKivitz against Max Crosby to get ready for TJ Watt. I'll tell you that much.
Put that on the what to watch for the week.
DJ, I was texting with him yesterday because Jeremiah, that it came up on the YouTube algorithm. He was like called into Eisen, and he was at Steelers training camp, and we were just he's like, God, they look fucking pretty good. He called Kenny Pickett like the poor man's Burrow. He thinks he's going to take a big step. He just thinks they're really talented.
What do you say about the rookie tight end? People say he's having a good camp.
Says he thought it was laughable that they listed him at 260. He said, Rich, I've been doing this for 20 years. He's not a pound under 290, and he looks fantastic.
Wow. So, is it Darrell Washington? No.
Yeah, Darrell Washington.
Yeah.
Darnell Washington.
I saw him catch a ball up the seam and just whoosh, take off.
Yeah, the Pickens is dominating. Their O-line looks way better. Obviously, TJ is healthy. They signed Highsmith. I mean, that to me is the most throwback game of week 1 of just there are going to be some bodies flying.
Yeah. They got Bosa's going up against a rookie left tackle.
His point was someone told him, like, on his little camp
Darnold.
tour, he's like, I could see the Steelers, or maybe he's like, I was listening to a podcast, someone picked the Steelers to finish 4th, and he's like, I might pick this team to win the division. So it's crazy. Like, the Steelers could easily lose the opening game and win 12 games. Same thing with the Niners, who feels like lose or don't play that well week 1 in general.
They get some weird games, yeah.
Against shitty teams. When's the last time they played, I would call, like, a double-digit win opponent week 1? They've been
the Lions
Tampa's,
game was the Lions game an opener or a week 2 game?
It was Lions, yeah.
Where Jimmy threw a pick 6, but then a penalty, and they won the game.
That was week 2, but they did open against the Lions, I'm pretty sure, a couple years ago. They definitely opened last year against the Bears, and they've opened once against Tampa. Feels like they've just played some shitty teams week 1.
Yeah.
That was Jameis Tampa, too, not Tom Tampa.
Jameis Tampa, right. Yep.
Because he threw like, he threw like 3 picks in that game.
Yeah, that's right. You want some QB grades? Did you hear, John? I've updated the grading system.
Okay.
I love the golf grade as much as anybody. It's created a lot of conversation. I've gotten a lot of texts from people, buddies, like, oh, I love the golf grade. But it's just flawed. So I switched to PFF grading. Very simple. PFF grading. And I'm going to tell you what today's scores were and what the last 2 days of quarterback scores were from Niners practice. PFF grading is very straightforward. You get a 0 grade, which is you do your job at a reasonable and expected level for a throw. Then you get plus 0.5, plus 1, plus 1.5, plus 2. It's an exceptional throw. Minus 0.5, minus 1, minus 1.5, and minus 2. Pretty straightforward system. So here's what the quarterbacks did today. I'll just rattle through it. Any comments on that, John?
Yeah, it really is a subjective system by these guys. I see where a lot of people push back. It's not objective at all, because there's a big difference of a couple 1s add up a lot faster than a 0.5 and a 0. Correct? So
yeah. But I'll say this: there aren't that many 1s. Last year, I think a 1 or above is what their big time throw is. And last year, Josh Allen led the league with 44 big time throws. So that's under 3 a game, just to give you an idea of how rare those throws are.
So you just get a 0 on like completing an out route, even if it's a
I give a fair amount of zeros, right?
Okay,
I can run you through it for today and for yesterday. But I called a buddy who played former NFL quarterback on my drive home, and I said, "Hey, does it make sense that most NFL throws are 0s and plus 0.5s and minus 0.5s?" And he said, "Yes."
What? That's what Steve Young thought.
That's and I was like, "Why a tittle? Thanks, man." All right. So here's what happened today. Brock Purdy was a 0 today. All in all, he had 3 positive throws today. He had 7 0 throws today, and he had 3 negative throws today. The last 2 days combined, I had Brock 75% 0 or better on 24 throws. So that's not completion percentage. It's 75% of his throws were either 0 or plus throws. Okay. He was a 0 today. Yesterday, he was a plus 0.5. Brock's positive throws today, John, a tight window, like 15-yard throw through a couple people to Debo, a really nice throw. As you could, from the backside, you could see it opening up. Ayuk coming across, about a 15 to 20-yard throw to the sideline. He made a nice throw on a low snap, picked it up, hit Debo to the far sideline. So those were his 3 positive throws. 3 negative throws. Those were all 0.5. None of those. I did not hand out a single plus 1 throw today. 0.5 negative throws, John. Behind Christian McCaffrey on like an out route, kind of off his back shoulder, incomplete. Missed Ayuk with good coverage from Mooney Ward. Just wasn't going to be Ayuk kind of had to play DB on it. So, throws like that. Sam Darnold today, also 0 even. Darnold, I gave him 2 plus throws. Both were 0.5s, 7 0 graded throws, and 1 negative throw. It was an interception. On a deep ball, it looked like a pretty pass down the sideline, and Jair Brown came over, kind of Hufanga style, and made his first interception of camp. So that was a -1 throw. And
That's the Penn State rookie, correct?
Penn State rookie. Yeah. The safeties have been good. The 49ers cornerbacks do not have a pick yet in camp. But it was a good play. So that's 2 plus 0.5 throws and 1 -1 with some zeros in there for Darnold. Trey was plus 0.5 today. 2 positive throws for Trey. 4 just equal 0 throws and 1 negative throw for Lance, which was a kind of a left sideline, Latu wide open, and about 15, 20 yards down the field, just throws it right over his head. But plus 0.5 all told for him. Brock, 77% of his throws were 0 or better. Today, Trey, 86% of his throws were 0 or better, but he had 10 fewer throws. And Darnold, 90% of his throws today were 0 or better. The last 2 days, 24 throws for Brock, 75% of them were 0 or better. The last 2 days, 14 throws for Trey, 79%. And the best of the group by these grades, just by these percentages, was Darnold, 88%, 0 or better on 17 throws. Now, I will tell you, even more context to this. Brock gets more throws. Brock pushes it down the field more. Darnold's pick today was one of the rare times he's pushed it down the field. He seems to check it down a lot. Trey and Brock both throw a lot. It feels like they throw more intermediate balls than Darnold does. These grades probably don't match up with the numbers. When you look at what their numbers were today, Brock was 9 of 16. Trey was 4 of 8. Darnold was 5 of 9. There were, for example, you get a 0 score, an okay score on drops. Trey had an on-target throw that was dropped. Sam had an on-target throw that was dropped. So,
can I give
there you go.
Just
GFF.
Now, even when I was going to practice, I'd never kept track of the numbers. Obviously, use them for context to talk about. I do think the internet, people that talk about the 49ers, spent way more time talking about like the specific numbers, like they're a game, than the coaches do. And I think Kyle alluded to that yesterday. I saw. Obviously, if you were just 2 of 10 every practice and skipping balls, it would be a problem. But like I do think that this type shit, the amount of time I've heard people, and we do it when we talk about it, like ultimately Purdy's numbers, if he's healthy and aren't just an utter train wreck, just don't matter at all. Like no one, all the starting quarter, like if you just went to Seattle's practice, like Geno's a starting quarterback. Are they every single practice talking about his numbers? I don't know if they are. Like he's just the starting quarterback, or Matt Stafford or whatever. Maybe on a given practice, like he was really good, like 9 of 10, or a really shitty practice, like God, he couldn't complete anything. It's a story on that individual day. But just accumulation on a daily basis, it just doesn't fucking matter when it comes to Purdy. Doesn't matter if he's healthy. Like he's a starting quarterback. There are no arguments. And even the other guys, which I understand where it's more relevant that the other 2 guys, because they're competing against each other. We just saw the depth chart come out. It's or. So it's not like they're already acknowledging, and some of it has to do just with the conversation. If they named one guy, it would be immediately one of the biggest stories in the NFL, right? So far, this guy's the number 2 and this guy's the number 3. So it's a completely easy one to do. But I just overall think that the numbers is a conversation that happens online. It happens with people cover the team. I just don't think it's happening at the same rate internally. Like that's not the way they put it into context as they're coaching and talking about it. Obviously, individual plays that are shitty gets coached up or whatever. But I think there's a disconnect. I know because I've been in these meetings. This is not the way that it's like consumed.
But where's the disconnect? Like, because Mayoko tweets those numbers. I don't think Mayoko pretends like those matters number.
No, they don't. He's just putting it out there. I think their overall media has gotten worse with Twitter because everyone kind of copies everyone else and people are afraid. Just as a general statement, I think he's an old school J, but he's progressive. I think he's balances it. You just kind of have to. It's just one of those things in his case where, other guys, you just don't have a choice.
Yeah.
But he's a good example of knowing how meaningless it is, like to the overall. And meaningless is strong because the plays matter, right? The way you practice, the way you've improved. Like Trey's improved, right? That's impressive. You want to improve. Sam, the knock is he checking it down too much? But no one knows what him and Kyle are talking about, right? So if you just get the casual person that's seeing this, that kind of feels like, well, Trey's improved, he's got to be better. If it comes with Sam Darnold being the number 2, people are going to be like, what the fuck, right? And I'm talking about the 99% of people that have not gone to any of these practices that just feel based on these numbers, one guy's better than the other.
Do the completion percentages have Darnold behind Trey?
I don't know. I'm just saying it feels like based on the numbers and the touchdown and just the vibe of, if Trey's improved, even if they're somewhat equal, why wouldn't you go with the guy? I can just already see the way they're playing it out.
I
can see the light at the end of the tunnel where this is headed. I don't blame anyone for going and talking about it. I just think that I don't think it's discussed by the people that actually make the decisions. Like in a similar thing when these guys all got on the Zoom and bitched and moaned about how much money they were making, and then the media's like, these guys are getting fucked. It's like the only people you guys should be worried about are the coaches and the GMs because they're determining your salaries. It does not matter if the beat writers, if all your followers, if your fans, if your agent, like they're kind of irrelevant to all this. The people you should be mad at are the coach and the GM because ultimately the owner loves them for figuring out ways to pay you guys less.
Yeah, or your college coach that left you at running back.
Or that too, but like, what if that's your best position? Like Saquon's a good running back.
The GM. It's not. I can even be mad at the general manager. Like it's just about, hey, I think I can replace this guy in 2 years. That's the way it's middle relievers. Like middle relievers just. I hate to say that, but middle relievers don't get paid as much as starters or closers, right?
Well, but I thought what was funny is the guys leading the charge on the phone call. McCaffrey's guilty here too. Already rich. They've already been paid.
Oh, you feel obligated. It's not going anywhere.
But like, look at Jonathan Taylor. They got him amped up. He gets to training camp. He's all pissed off. Like, how's that going for him?
Yeah,
the owner literally said, the owner's like, I can die and no one gives a fuck. And Jonathan Taylor's like, wait, Saquon and all these guys were just pounding the table for me. It's like, yeah, bro, that's not the way it works. So it gets back to this situation where I think I can just see it going down this road of creating quote unquote, and I'm not trying to overgeneralize because not everyone's on Twitter, but I just do think the conversation of the people that talk about this consistently, the numbers really influencing, and I don't necessarily think that. And I'm not saying that because my take on Sam Darnold has been, I think he's going to be the number 2 because I think Kyle wants him to be the number 2. Not because I think he's the next Steve Young or whatever. I'm definitely intrigued, or was when he signed, but it's pretty clear. I mean, you've seen it. I haven't, but the Trey's improved. The mechanics have been better. But I know for a fact, like when you struggle with no one's even arguing that the short stuff has been a struggle. Like that's worth on the pie chart infinitely more to Kyle than I think the average guy that's like, well, it's a couple incompletions. Who cares? He hit the fucking deep seam. He hit the deep out. Yeah, Kyle doesn't give a fuck. I know that. I mean, and everyone most people that listen to this or follow this team kind of know that too. Like, we all got a good feel of what we're looking for because we know the way these guys think now. They've been here long enough. But there's emotions are high and these numbers. It's just not the way it's going to trend.
John, there's 1,000 different cars on the road. And part of the reason is because different people have different requirements. Some people want a third row. Some people care more about tech. Some people care more about gas mileage. Different car owners have different desires. Kyle Shanahan has a different desire than Al Davis would have had for a quarterback, right? Like completely polar opposite desires about what they're looking for. And the eye test tells us that Kyle values. The numbers tell us. I mentioned this yesterday. Josh Dubow gave me a great stat. Last year, the number 1 and number 2 quarterbacks in the NFL on yards per attempt on 0 graded throws. So just the throw where you just do your job to an expected level. Jimmy number 1, Brock number 2. In other words, Kyle is saying, if you do your job, I can get 6 yards per attempt. It'll lead the league.
You're saying in the league, it was
correct,
his quarterback.
In the NFL. And you know, number 3 was Goff.
So beside you remove basically Trey's game in a series, it was Kyle Shanahan's quarterback that led that.
And maybe Trey would have too, right? He just didn't play enough games probably to qualify for that.
But that's not. But we know that's not his strength. They're just the easy.
No,
stuff, right?
but it's still what Kyle would have done with him, right? It's what he does with everybody. 0 graded throws. So just the do your job throws, they led the league in yards per attempt.
Well, you tell me if this is true. Last year, he still had the mindset of his rookie year doing all the zone read, running him, where it feels like, do you even see that out there? Or he just
once or twice, not even per day.
But they're treating him much more like a normal quarterback now than this kind of hybrid, right?
Yep.
So maybe they would have got to it, but it was like this convoluted offense that Kyle was kind of uncomfortable with, that because of Trey's improvement of just his arm motion, which is important. I heard, who did I hear say this the other day? Maybe it was Kruger. That one thing he's like, that Trey can be, he's definitely improved that, right? That's consistent even as the practices have gone, but he can't really freelance off like a sidearm or, Jimmy wasn't great at it, but he could try. Where Purdy's much more likely to kind of he can just get you the ball in a different manner. I'm not calling him Patrick Mahomes, but Trey is he's just making his normal throw. And this gets back to, if you do the Kaepernick comparison, who is, it's hard to compare Trey and Kaepernick because Kaepernick was infinitely better. Much better college player, much better runner in the pros, immediately had a spiral when he got as a player and functioned immediately at a high level when he started playing, right by his second year in the league. But Colin, he really struggled at the short stuff, right? Because he could only really throw the fastball. So it was hard for him to just kind of, throw a changeup. And sometimes a changeup, your motion has to change. I think that's been a knock sometimes on Josh Allen. I think, Sam, you know better than me on Sam, but feels like he's
whether he can throw it short. Yeah, he can check. Oh, he can check it down.
Yeah.
He's checking it down with the best of them in Niner practice.
Maybe he knows that's the way to Kyle's heart.
Well, I said that, yeah. I mean, I think sometimes I watch Darnold in practice, and I think he practices like he's playing to the score. Like he knows how they're getting evaluated, and these are the things. Me taking a shot in practice, he did it today, but that's not what's going to get me the number 2 job. That's how we practice.
And maybe I'll be proven wrong. I'm approaching this of like, when people get really mad at politicians for making like stock trades, like they knew the information. It's like, yeah, guys, the game is rigged. The game is rigged. You could argue America's rigged. You're either playing the game or the game's playing you. And I came in with the mindset, again, I don't have insight. It's not like Kyle told me this. I'm just basing it off following this team, basing it off everything that happened, that I thought the game was rigged before the thing even started. And I haven't really pivoted off that, even though clearly Trey has improved his stock as a player, just internally to the Niners. Now he's gets to do it. The other thing is in football, you could argue like for starting, like Russell Wilson might play some snaps or Carr might play some snaps. I don't put much stock into like what starters, I'm going to judge you off the regular season games, but you can judge backup players for just their perception around the league, right? And just be viewed at better or worse, right? Once you play in these preseason games. So you can help yourself a lot.
Absolutely.
To me, a lot, sometimes more externally than internally.
Right.
Like there's a chance that and this could be wrong if they already have like the internal view set, lockbox, throw away the key. Like that's not the way you should view players, but we know that happens sometimes. But that's not the way externally random teams are like, how's this guy looking? What's this guy's deal? What's going on here? Right.
You have different situations.
Yeah.
Right. You got Niners have 4 quarterbacks. Brandon Allen today was a plus 0.5, by the way, on 2 throws. But yeah, who does the tie go to? You and I have talked about that a lot. Who does the tie go to in Kyle's mind? Who does the tie go to?
I think Sam.
Johan says, if short stuff is the only thing that matters, why are you spending 3 first-round picks on Lance? Because in an ideal world, you want both, right? You want the guy that can ad-lib, that can do the short, that can make the short throws, do everything that you tell him to do, and then 3 or 4 times a game can account for the fact that once the 14 seconds on the play clock hits and your QB comms get cut off and Kyle can't tell you where to throw it, that you're able, when all the shit falls apart, to just make a play. And that's what you're aiming for. You're going for broke. You are trying to win the lottery when you do that. I mean, so I supported at the time. You know, you got to try that. You got to try to get that guy, especially right now. There's a difference between being good enough to contend for the NFC Championship, which the Niners are, and being good enough to win the Super Bowl. If they win the Super Bowl, make no mistake, they are an exception to the rule of how Super Bowl teams win Super Bowls with great quarterbacks, in addition to great all-around teams. The Niners have a very good, excellent, maybe a great all-around team. But if they win a championship, they're likely an exception to the rule. At this point, maybe we look back 10 years from now, Brock Purdy's a 10-year, 11-year starter, franchise quarterback, and whatever. But that's the way it sets up right now. They're trying to be an exception to the rule. And when you drafted Trey, you were trying to not be an exception to the rule. You were trying to be like Mahomes and Burrow and Herbert, right? Josh Allen, all those guys.
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence, whoever, you name it. I mean, you trying to get a star quarterback, right? I mean, that's what you attempted to do, and I can't blame him at all. One take I have, and I feel pretty good about it, I think Mac Jones is going to get everyone fired in New England this year. They got 7-10 or something written all over them, and Mac Jones is going to be the reason that one will age about where we all. That one was kind of a universal take. I think most people thought, no fucking way, take one of the other two guys, and who knows? We'll see. I mean, ton of pressure this year on Fields, right? Who's definitely going to have to prove himself. Probably new GM and new coach. There is no arguing because the reality is we're here. Now, you can argue the road, how we got here, was fair or not. I hear you. Like you could make any sort of argument how we got here. But on August 8th, we're here. And when the depth chart comes out, that a guy that you traded 3 first-round picks for, really 2 because you swapped, but the way that 99% of people talk about it, they'll just say 3 first-round picks. And as the listener just said, 3 first-round picks, even though it's 2 because you used one of the picks on Trey. You're going into year 3 with that individual, and he's not even a lock to be your backup quarterback. He's an or. Like that's where we are, August 8th. Now that could change. That or could be taken out in 2.5 weeks. In my theory of Kyle, be wrong. Or where a lot of people, I heard DJ say this to Rich Eisen yesterday. He predicts I've heard other people throw this out, like Atlanta. You know, just there's other teams. That
he predicted a trade.
Not necessarily a trade, that if Sam wins the second job, that it would be on the table and other teams would be crazy to not sniff around that had disaster quarterback situations.
Yeah.
Right? That, you know, there were some rumors that Minnesota definitely tried to trade for him around the draft. Now, the compensation clearly didn't make sense, right? The Niners didn't have any leverage, so it doesn't make sense to give a 6th-round pick that even could go conditional to a 4th, right? It makes sense. Oh, you give it a 2? Yeah, he's probably traded right now. But the amount anyone was offering at his value being an all-time low, because how would his value not be an all-time low? He's an or going into year 3, which is not all his fault. His ankle shattered. Kyle didn't believe he could run his offense, so they force-fed an offense that treated him like Lamar Jackson when he's really closer to like fucking Brock Purdy running around speed-wise. You know, I mean, but we're here. We're here. So that's really all I care. We're here. So people can talk about, I'm not a big rear view mirror guy. Like, well, this could happen. It didn't. We're here. Yeah. And now he's an or.
Yeah.
Like the entire league. Say what you want. It might be nothing. The entire league sees that. It's like, damn, he's not. It is what it is.
And they all have an opinion of Darnold.
For sure.
Randall says, God, the Sam Darnold narrative is so damn frustrating for knowledgeable football guys. I don't know if he thinks knowledgeable football guys would like Sam or hate Sam. The reason I would keep Trey around is because it's very likely that Sam Darnold gets into a game and looks like the same Sam Darnold we've seen before. And you go, okay, this was a nice experiment. Kyle says, I tried. Still got Trey around here to, you know, maybe he's the one that gets the next opportunity should you get into that position. So I would not be in much of a rush to trade Trey because I don't think you're getting the value that's worth giving up on having the guy who might actually be your second best quarterback. I'm intrigued with Sam just like you are, but I'm also pretty pessimistic based on all the football I've watched of him.
I'm talking much more at this point in time on August 8th from Kyle's perspective than like I'm interested to see what these guys look like in some live bullets the next couple of weeks. I'm more speaking of just the reality of what's on the table right now. And anyone, and this is where I roll back to the statistics. I think a lot of people a little bit have their head in the sand, / some people that are talking about this. When you talk about this shit for a living and you don't know people inside the league, like your opinions are just a little more thrown at the wall and seeing what sticks. Like there is a reality to this, and that's where I think, I'm not trying to.
Well,
act
here's
like
one of the
John.
Can I interrupt
talking
you?
about, but it's like you can see where this is going. And listen, listen. A lot of people, like I listened to some of Grant yesterday. He was like, this trade's on the table. Like, hey, everyone's talking about it, but I think a lot of the fans don't. Like, come on, guys. And I don't know who you're listening to. You get a lot of these randoms now that fucking talk about this shit. It's like, I'm not trying to be an asshole here, but the reality is, like, fucking open your eyes.
John, here's an example of the context that you're talking about where the numbers can't all be equal. The difference between practicing against the first team defense and the second team defense is the difference between practicing against one of the best defenses in the NFL, right? That's what Brock predominantly does, and not. So the numbers just are the numbers, but they don't tell you there's a difference between playing against a number 3, top 5 defense, whatever, and their backups.
Yeah. I just think the numbers get a lot of play, and rightfully
That's
so.
why the Haberman grading system has come into existence.
Yeah, I view them. I give them credit for wasting your time, fucking making charts. Not you. I'm just saying, like, write the numbers 1 of 2, and you've always said this. It's so subjective. Like, is this a sack? There was a play the other day of Jordan Love. I don't know if you saw it. He was like, I think it was a play in Lambeau. He was like rolling left. 2 defenders were beelining to him. Right when they got to him, he kind of stops. They stop. They don't even put up their arms. And he throws it between both of them. And people were like, what a dime. It's like the defenders literally not only just stopped, and I'm not saying they would have sacked him, but they definitely would have both been like this. It would have been and they both just stopped, arms down, and he threw it kind of between their helmets. And obviously the guy caught it in the end zone with a DB draped on him. The result was nice, but it's like, this isn't, what are we talking about here? Like, but this is the internet age. And it's hard for coaches to probably, the good thing with football, unlike if the equivalent was happening in the NBA, guys have so much downtime that's on your football and training camps just go. So it's not as much. You don't have like hour after hour to just sit and see like the vibe on Twitter. I'm not saying that guys don't know, people aren't forwarding them. You just don't have the same amount of time. Yeah. Like most teams aren't doing the Tom Sula Twitter breaks for 20 minutes. Remember those?
That's what the youth need, John. Yeah. I was looking at F.Signature LLC animation, which make us some animation. That'd be cool. Brock has 25 turnover-worthy plays last year, and y'all want him as your starter. 25 turnover-worthy plays, 8 games. LOL, my goodness. Tell John to open his eyes.
I don't want him as a starter. He is the fucking starter, and he's not going anywhere. And Kyle, I don't view as like Joe Judge or Pat Shermer, so I'm not pounding the table like this idiot. Why do we trust him? Like, he's done enough to prove my trust. I know the guy's a starter. The entire team rallied behind it and agrees with it. So it's like, what the fuck? This is the waste of the time.
But can I say,
see on the internet constantly?
Also,
it's outrageous.
I'm looking at the numbers. He didn't have 25 turnover-worthy throws. He had 7. So I don't.
I know, but whether the numbers.
No,
are right
I know. I know the number
that is a
doesn't
consistent
matter,
theme on the internet, guy.
That Brock Purdy's in a competition.
Not even that.
That he should be in a competition.
Yeah, why aren't more people bitching and moaning? It's like, what the fuck is wrong with people? I don't relate to any of these fucking people anymore. Do I need to go to some other internet? I don't know. I feel like I'm an internet outlier. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, we are ignoring the rules of football that have been taught for all of our years of watching football. No matter what your eye test tells you, if you just did what Brock Purdy just did, and I said this a week ago and I'll say it again, if Trey Lance had just had the exact same season that Brock Purdy had last year, we wouldn't be talking about Brock Purdy at all in this camp. Sam Darnold would be, maybe he'd be here, but no one would be talking about him as the starter, right? Because when your top drafted quarterback puts together those types of numbers, you go, oh my God. Because he's more athletic. He's got better
Now,
skills.
it's also par for the course. It happened with Cousins with RG3 for a couple of years till they clearly separated.
I'm just saying anybody who does what Brock did in 8 games gets to start the next year as the starter. It's just it's always happened that way in the history of the sport.
Part of two
doesn't mean anybody's saying he's a guaranteed franchise quarterback. No, I'm not saying that. You're not saying that.
And I understand polarizing situations, right? Kaepernick, Alex was one because Alex had just been the starting quarterback. Even though his numbers weren't crazy and it was a running defensive team in an NFC Championship game, was then having a really good season. But then Kaepernick came in, and he was highly drafted, remember, second-round guy. So, and it was still pretty controversial. But, like, Alex had equity. Like, I'm just not a huge, like, you got no equity with me. I treat you like a widget in my mind. Like, I get back to the coach, front office. Like, fans can hold on more to, like, what could be, like, 3 or 4 years later. Like, I've already moved on, you know, and maybe I'm wrong. I'm not saying like I'm fucking Bill Polian here, but I'm like Kyle, just moved on. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll find out, but he's done it before. And part of it is I view now football through his eyes. You just kind of go, you know, Belichick, you just go.
Well,
you just keep moving.
You've always felt that way about 21 positions. You don't, the 22nd, the quarterback usually doesn't get treated that way.
And I also think Purdy gets, no one knows how good the guy's going to be this year. Like, I don't know. I mean, I would expect him to be at least average. Like, I think he's proven to be pretty solid. Yeah. Now, do I think he's like, do I feel good about like he's a lock to be a top 12, 13 quarterback this year? By no means.
Is he a lock to start every game if he's healthy? To never get benched once?
No, because of his draft status.
Yeah,
if
I think
you tell me he's healthy and getting benched, they got some major problems.
I agree, but I just think it's a 50-50 shot that there's some point in the season where Kyle's like, you know, maybe one of these other guys today. I don't know. No, maybe not. Maybe he'll have a great
true
year.
Benching.
Well, what'd you say?
I could see him go bullpen style. He
bullpen
did it with
style.
Jimmy. Yeah. He's more. Yeah.
Just like I'm pissed at this guy today. Let's try something else. Like that's on the that is 50-50. So sure. I say all that to say, like, you and I are
Belichick did it with Mac Jones, remember?
Yeah.
So it's like you get, and I think Kyle is similar to him in terms of the way he looks at players. Obviously, the equity in Bill's Super Bowls, I'm not comparing them, but I'm just saying he does look at football like that. So when you look at the team through his eyes, you know how quick they'll pivot off shit. You just do. And there's a small number of guys that have earned the equity that are kind of untouchable. Like, it took Debo, they were kind of on the fence for carrying the team to the NFC Championship, right? Which was unheard of for a position player to do. Like, Derrick Henry's the last guy. Like, it's impossible to earn a lot of equity with him. And you can tell even sometimes that, like, do they love that contract? You know? That would probably be the one if you had to list, like, their top 8 guys. It's like, yeah, well, you know, they could fudge it a little bit. But assuming, and that's why I think Debo knows. The other thing is, that's a good example, right? I think Debo kind of got the buzz of like, God, I've seen Buckner traded. I've seen some crazy shit happen here. I know Kyle's not super happy with me last year. I'm not happy with myself, but I know he's not happy with me. I better fucking dial in, right? And look at him. What did he talk about all offseason? Stays on the West Coast, sending him the naked pictures. It's not just he's, you know, shirtless. You know, he had pants on. But I think that's a pretty good reflection of Debo knowing he'd been here long enough, seeing it. Like, what happened in 21, this fucking guy forgot about because 22 happened.
And he saw McCaffrey. He was like, oh.
And he saw McCaffrey.
He's already ready to replace me.
Who's just can never do any wrong because he's the hardest working guy and knows all the plays and
just can do the same thing.
Yeah. I think Debo's a good example of a smart player understanding how fast that, like, you know, I like playing here. I'm a star here, right? I don't want to get traded to the Vikings or just some random, you know, I like being here. I like being Debo
12 months after a trade request.
Yeah. He changed real quick.
By the way, John, someone pointed out in the stream, it's hard to see it here, but there's also an or listed on kicker, Jake Moody, Zane Gonzalez. Now, do you think any part of Kyle Shanahan hasn't already decided who the kicker is? right? That competition is already. Moody today made 2 60-yarders, by the way, with plenty of distance. But there's an
that
oral
one. That one to me feels a little Fangio with Eric Reed. Remember, like training camp started, they drafted Eric Reed in the first round, and Eric Reed was like running with the threes. It's like Vic. Week 1, starters roll out. Eric Reed's there. There's like kind of this old school mentality. Is that a Kyle thing, or is that the special teams coach? Is it a combination of the two?
I mean,
just an easy
you're,
one.
you're
Why
asking, does
not?
Kyle care enough to mess with the kicker? I mean, the coaches don't make this either, right? And they do split reps equally. So
They do?
Well, Jake gets one day, Zane gets the. There's just not enough kicks, so they each get a day where they're the kicker, and then they each get a day off, and they each get a day, and then there's a day where they share the kicks. So,
Yeah, I mean, technically a 4th round pick if you factor in conditionals bleed over. But
101.
I think that I think Jake Moody is the lock of all locks, right? The opposite of the backup quarterback situation, which some might consider fluid, some don't. That one, there is no fluidity to it, right? Non-injury. To me, the question is, does Zane, there could be an agent deal here. Is Zane a lock to be on the team the entire training camp? Is there just a time where you're just
Yeah,
like, what?
I mean, you might maybe. I think you treat him kind of like you treated Jimmy last year. Different, but in the sense where it's you never know what's going to happen with kickers in other people's camps. Maybe you can trade Zane Gonzalez for a conditional 6. You can just trade him for a 6th or a 7th, right? You've got him, so maybe you trade him right before the season starts because he's a good kicker.
Been injured.
Yeah, I'm just saying, if he gets through healthy, somebody's in a tough spot, they need a kicker week 1 all of a sudden, which happens all the time. Bam, you've got him. Whatever you're going to use him for, you can use him for that. Or you got to protect your guy too.
Well, like from what you've seen, do you even think it would be a big deal if Jake Moody did not exist and they just had Zane Gonzalez? Would you feel fine about it? Like, does he look good?
Yeah, I'd feel fine about it, but I would say, where's the upside on not keeping Robbie around? Like, his leg's not that big. Neither was Robbie's, but I knew Robbie was nails when it came to the postseason. Jake,
Money.
I don't know if he's money or not, but I know he kicks the ball from 60 yards with room to spare.
Yeah.
JW asks, how many miss-worthy kicks? I need that stat. He made 2 from 60 today. I gave him a +2 on both of those.
I feel we're going to get some good pictures coming out of this little joint practice of just
Yeah.
Mark Davis, maybe Jed's probably won't be there, but I could see like a Mark Davis, John Lynch hug picture. I could see that. I could see definitely a Mark Davis, Mike Shanahan, Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch little powwow. Maybe like a Josh McDaniels, Jimmy, maybe like a Kittle Darnold picture. You're just going to see some interesting just combos, I think.
How about Greg Papa, Niners hat, Lincoln Kennedy doing like the, what is this face? Like the palms up, like, look at this guy. There's going to be a Greg with like 3 or 4, just Greg in Niners gear with 3 or 4 Raiders personnel around him, giving him a hard time. That I want that photo. I know that's not maybe what the mainstream is looking for, but that's on my list.
Musburger relieved of his duties, correct? Was that last year?
Yeah, Musburger, he was out. His last year was 21.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Who did it last year? Do you know? They have a new guy.
Yes, I know.
Who gives a fuck? No one's listening. But
Jason Horowitz.
Gotcha.
Yellow Spy, give us $5 to say the internet gives everyone the same voice, regardless of how dumb or smart they are. Keep up the good work.
I guess my overall take is there's just a lot of conversations happening that are pretty pointless, which you could argue we all have in our everyday life. On this one, that it's clear the way.
Yeah, that are getting amplified based off faulty premises.
Yeah. And how would you know if
and
you don't
used
know?
as evidence that there is a bias or a.
Yeah, it's just stupid.
I feel like I had a few more things today. Jair Brown made a pay. Who's? I'll tell you this. I think Ronnie Bell made a nice. Ronnie Bell looks better to me today than he did 2 weeks ago. So it's just a guy to watch. he's having a good camp. I think the 7th-round rookie out of Michigan had an ACL. He's 2 years removed from an ACL. But I think he's done a nice job. He had a drop or two early in camp, but he's done a nice job on like. I've been saying, John, on I said it yesterday, maybe one other show without you, that like if you're a receiver, you really want some balls thrown to you that aren't perfect throws because that's your chance to kind of flash, especially when there's like 12 receivers out there. And Ronnie Bell has kind of made some really nice plays on balls where you have to go make a play, and you can look good. The quarterback can almost set you up to look good with a bad throw. He's made some nice catches in those situations. So
the preseason games will really test you. The Niners, the first half will be easy with Darnold and Lance playing, right? By the second half, you get a lot of Brandon Allen versus what's the former Cows quarterback start battling it out.
Chase Garbers.
Yeah, you get that. We get some true diehard P1s that are still watching. I mean, truly locked in. It's preseason football is cool in theory. Like I could watch the Jets when Zach Wilson was out there. But once like you start removing that second string level famous guy, it can fall off a cliff fast of just your interest. It's hard. Because it even feels like it starts cutting to star players and T-shirts, chewing seeds, BS, and you start feeling like, well, what they don't get. What am I giving my time for? It turns into that quick.
Yeah, yep. Any Shanahan Garoppolo pictures?
There was the Minnesota one last year, so I would expect. Yeah, I would expect it. 100% a John Lynch, Jimmy Garoppolo hug, right? They will have an embrace.
A John Lynch
embrace.
Yeah.
Don't you think a Kittle embrace?
Kittle embrace. Trey. How about Trey?
Yeah. I mean, they spent 2 years together. They'll have an embrace.
What's the line on this game, John?
I mean, are there lines on preseason games? No, there are. Because I saw that John Harbaugh, right, hasn't lost a preseason game in like 17 years. He's favored against the Eagles this weekend.
Oh, I forgot about that stat. He should be proud. Any other notes for you from Niners? No, just here we go. Niners Raiders. I'm with you. It has been under the radar how when you add to it the Jimmy, like we got this whole Darnold Trey thing going on. Then you bring Jimmy into the mix. Fred Warner, we're going to have a photo of Fred like pointing at him.
I think part of it is, I would say it's not really a polarizing take in people that just talk about football. Most people think the Raiders are going to stink. So it's like last year there was a lot of buzz on them, right? Josh McDaniels, Carr. I would say last year the version of the Raiders, this would just be a more talked about endeavor because it was like, God, could the Raiders win 10, 11 games again? Were they going to be? I saw like the Action Network had them predicted if Jimmy were to miss a game, be an underdog at every game they were to play. Obviously, I mean, Brian Hoyer's like things could get disastrous quick.
Jimmy will,
in theory,
Jimmy will
not
miss the game.
Big picture, if that leads to one of these sweet young quarterbacks, maybe. But like, does Josh McDaniels have enough equity to go 3-14 and keep his job? There'd be a lot of. It's easy to always say, well, it's cool to be really shitty like Tampa. Is Todd Bowles just a lock to be the coach next year if they win 3 games with Caleb Williams?
Well, we know that coaches, that GMs or owners don't go, oh, well, it happens all the time. Coaches get fired with bad teams that were not their fault. Right? Todd Bowles has no chance this year.
None. But would you put like 50-50 if I tell you right now, football Jesus shows up, he's like, Tampa's going to have the number 1 pick. What % would Todd Bowles be the coach week 1, 2024?
I'd say under 20.
Yeah. So it's like those get no
better
one's trying to
Lincoln
lose.
Riley's the coach of the Bucs at that situation.
I don't even care what you've been promised. Like people, I get a lot of DMs. Like, do you think they're actually signing Jimmy with the hopes to lose? That is just not the way the NFL ever works. Like, there is no chance, even if Mark Davis has told Josh, like, be shitty. We want one of these sweet quarterbacks. How could Josh trust him, right? Because you see it all the time in football. I was told one thing and then they did another. It's like what's his name was being paid to tank. Remember a couple years ago, Brian Flores and won 3 out of his last 5 games. And it cost him Joe Burrow. He's like, I'm not taking your 100 G's. We're trying to win. That's just football. That was devastating. And then
if they had told him he'd definitely be the coach, I mean, maybe he would have listened.
But they did, and they were trying to pay him money.
Question, how do you guys feel about how Darnold's taking care of the ball in camp? It seems to be his biggest criticism. He has the best turnover ratio of the quarterbacks during training camp. Well, I'm here to tell you this is a great example of what I'm talking about with the context. Does not matter. Truly, Brock has taken more chances than Sam. Sam took a shot today. He threw a pick. It wasn't a bad pick. It really wasn't. It was like a deep sideline throw, and the safety came over and made a nice play. But I don't think it means he's better than Brock Purdy. I don't know. But he has been doing what it's like I told you. He's got a 90% the last 2 days, a 0 or a plus grade. Because it's a lot of like, I'm just going to do the right thing and put it on the money. He's not taking a lot of chances.
I do not blame that individual that just tweeted that at all. At all.
It's a legitimate question. That's a fair question.
But that's a good example of talking about turnovers in practice, right? Like if you finish the NFL season, right, with your numbers are 21 touchdowns, 19 picks, you'd be like, God, that's a shitty year. It's just finite, tangible. Like those were your touchdowns and picks for the whatever 2022 season. I think it's more than debatable on like, was that actually a pick? Was the guy even supposed to be there? Like that.
You don't do red zone that much, so we don't know how many touchdowns you're throwing.
Well, it's like, well, he was actually sacked, so he never would even thrown the ball. Kyle told me no matter what. What if it's one of those, like, in this practice, no matter what, throw it to this. Like, there are so many things that you're fudging in practice also. You do not have any
Let me just give Debo a shot on this one.
And no matter what, Brandon or Sam or Trey, even I'm defending Trey here too, because he's throwing some picks. What if he was told by Kyle, make this throw. We want to see what it looks like against this look on their defense. No matter what. Open or not, we don't give a shit.
Yeah, he did have one that Kyle said he should have checked it down. But Kyle doesn't explain every pick. So
no, that's what I'm saying. There are definitely some where it's like you made the wrong decision, right, or the wrong play, or ran the wrong route. We talking most about the quarterbacks, but it could be any position. But there's also some of like, try to break it off this play against this defense. Try this out. That's what practice is all about?
Well, pitchers in spring training, it's always that, right? It's like, they're always working on their fastball command first. You know, they're not pitching the way they would pitch in a game or whatever the case is. The breaking ball doesn't break. I mean, that's a bad example, but
well, it's like you can't hit it out of bounds on the driving range, and that's essentially what practice is, right?
Well, especially, the analogy I thought of today, John, was you can't get hit. Like the most fundamental part of the sport doesn't exist. It's the difference between like going on a rock climbing wall and climbing the side of a rock. There is just a major factor that does not exist. Climb the side of a rock, you fall, you're dead. Nobody's there to help you with your broken leg if you manage to survive. 8 feet up on a climb wall, it's a totally different thing. You can get really good at that, but it's totally different than that, right?
For sure.
Half dome versus a empty airplane hangar in Atherton. It's two different things.
I mean, there's training regimens, and then there's the real endeavor of whatever you're doing. Like you can have a sales meeting, and then when you're sitting there with the client, like it's a completely different. There's no training wheels, right? I take the training wheels off the games. You could even argue the practices. The other thing in training camp, here's the other thing in training camp that would never get discussed in context on the internet. After a couple days, especially if I've played on the team with you for a couple years, I know your strengths and weaknesses as a player. I know where you kind of lean. I know what you do in certain coverages or as a player, where you go. When I go against the Raiders, they're going to be players, especially if I'm a younger player, or even like Debo or Ayuk. Like, I've never seen this guy. Never played against this guy. Or I played against this guy like 4 years ago when he was on the Steelers and they were running a different defense. So it's a little foreign. It's why Kyle even said yesterday, I put a ton of stock in these practices. The joint practices. Because it's like, hey, I want you to run a play. We don't know what's coming. After a while, like, you kind of know your defense and what's coming.
I honestly, I'm not Jimmy Garoppolo excuse guy. I think that's part of why Jimmy throws picks in practice, especially when he did against the Niners. Fred was picking them off all the time, right?
Yeah, don't they want you to like Like if Trey or Brock Purdy are not hitting these balls down the field, isn't that the time to throw the ball down the field?
The thing with Jimmy, though, is it feels like Jimmy's picks are not 50-50 balls down the sideline. Jimmy's picks come on 15-yard throws over the middle, right? Like really painful interceptions. Fred Warner picks.
But this is where I get back to, like, if Trey throws a pick or Purdy throws a pick, I actually think it probably gets overvalued on, like, that's a big deal, right?
I agree.
From the internet web. I think it's a much bigger deal when you just – it's why I think that the thing that is concerning is the Trey Short touch game, right?
Yeah, I mean, here's what to watch for each guy. Trey Short game. Does Brock take appropriate risks? And does Darnold get rid of the football quickly? Darnold has protected the ball in practice. But I think my biggest concern with Sam, when I watched him from last year, is he takes too long to throw the football. Well, in practice, that's irrelevant.
Yeah.
It's like irrelevant. So those are that's one thing for each guy for me.
But Purdy, I mean, at most, he might get a couple series in the preseason. At most.
Right. Well, he's not playing this week.
There's a chance he does not play in the preseason.
Yeah, well, sorry, let me rephrase. The thing to watch for Brock is the regular. That's just a thing to watch for Brock this year.
Yeah.
When he does the blind spin into TJ Watt in week 1.
Which is going to, I mean, TJ Watt.
The good news is the blind side is Trent.
TJ Watt's a lock to get a sack.
Although Hassan Reddick got him from the front side, so.
Yeah.
Both sides are risky.
18-step play action drop. Blocked by, the third string tight end. Just chip with TJ Watt. He won't know it's coming. It's like he might.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Cool. So see you in Vegas?
Yeah. Be there Thursday bright and early. Mark Davis said he has our passes.
I wonder what would have happened. I saw our guy Will Kiss the other day. He was nice as always. It sounds like they're letting Greg in, so that's progress.
It is. Usually that first year early on, the divorce is messy. When you meet someone like 5-10 years later that are divorced and still because of kids or whatever have to deal with them, and the hatred is still strong. It's like that's real, right? I would say for the most part, this might be a generalization. Well over half, you kind of just become numb to it. Oh yeah, she's coming over. She's picking up the kids, or I'm dropping her off. But when it's like I can't stand, you know who. Same thing with jobs. Frank's fucking been to rattling off NFC Championship games, been in the Super Bowl. All he was doing was winning 4 games a year with the Raiders. Put you in some games that matter. See how that your fucking voice is all over the internet when the NFL's tweeting out sweet plays by the 49ers. That didn't happen for 15 years with the Raiders.
I'm trying to think what was his most iconic call of the last 10 years with the Raiders. Check with Derek Bopp on that.
Honestly, it was probably something that was being made fun of, like a Khalil Mack and remember what's his name?
Steele Moore.
Yeah, stuff like that. Like that.
God, we have so much Raider knowledge that just doesn't translate to anything.
But it's like
lows.
Stuff like that define the Raiders.
Yeah. Is Brock the same? No BS guy. Is he the same guy he was last season? I don't know. We'll see. We got to watch him in games, but I think he's looked fine. I think, especially lately, I think he's looked good. He's thrown some picks, but I think he's looked like the same guy. Andrew asked, is the Braden Willis hype real? I did not know there was Braden Willis hype. I would not say it's real. He's made some catches, but if, that's a spot where it's like, how does he block? If he can block and Kyle trusts him to block, then the hype is real because he's big. And they throw him the football. These guys throw him the ball a lot in practice. Big tight end from Oklahoma. Maybe play some special teams.
Kyle throws him more in practice than he does in games.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see what Devontae Adams' week looks like, John. That's a story, the Jimmy-Devontae combination. Is Jimmy just going to be feeding Devontae? No more Darren Waller. A lot of Raiders stuff to catch up on. So
no, I mean Derek Carr, Jimmy Garoppolo got replaced Derek Carr. You couldn't have made that up like 4 years ago.
I saw somebody posted a photo of Gruden and Derek both in Saints. Like Gruden, I guess, was there wearing a Saints t-shirt.
Yeah.
And someone just said, like, imagine this photo 3 years ago. Like, what would you have thought?
It's just, it's crazy how it got there. But the one thing, like, you never underestimate pro sports, the turnover, the change, especially like with those polarizing individuals.
Right.
Like, to me, if you like 4 years from now, a picture of Andy Reid and like Mahomes and Seattle Seahawks jerseys, like that would be like people would fall out of their chairs. But I would honestly, if you would have just tweeted out in 2020 like that picture of Gruden and Carr, I think the average person that's not that close to it was like, yeah, for sure.
Right.
Something weird happening. You know?
For sure.
Did Gruden get traded, Carr get cut, and they reunited? You know, something like that?
Yeah. What would be I don't know what the equivalent of that one would be today, but.
Like Bill and Mac Jones with like the Cowboys. I don't know. I mean,
yeah, like Bill and Jimmy together on the Cardinals next year.
I think it'd be more like Bill, like the Dallas Belichick and a Dallas Cowboy pullover.
Well, I mean, to me, if Bill is out in New England, that's the place he's got to go. He can't retire on that note.
The one thing
if he could go coach Micah Parsons.
One thing I could see is like he's out. Tampa's the number one pick. Jason Light, New England guy. Yeah. The Glazers, they just give him like $30 million a year, like 5 years, $150 million.
Go coach Caleb.
Yeah, it could be the number 2 pick, and Bill's like, I'll fucking coach Drake May. Let's roll. Right? Florida, retire there with Linda.
Imagine being worse though. If the Bucks get the 2nd pick, that means somebody was worse than the Bucks.
It happens fast. I mean, the last year with the Texans, they were shitty all year, and somehow the Bears just kept losing games.
Yeah.
You can be really, really shitty. Like, think how terrible the Colts were last year. I mean, terrible. And they drafted 4. If you're in the top 5, you had a season. But it could just be like that one game where you were playing the Bills, they mailed it in, you end up winning, and that was the difference of you drafting 2 and 6.
I mean, John, the Niners were on their way to that whatever would have been the 18 draft before they got Jimmy. They were going to be like a 2-win team, and the Browns had no wins, right? And they weren't going to have the first pick.
Oh, yeah.
They were going to take Sam Darnold at 2 or 3.
The Myles Garrett year.
No, the Baker year.
Oh yeah. Oh, I see. Oh yeah.
The Baker, Sam Darnold, Josh Allen draft. Better to have done what the Niners did today than have drafted Sam Darnold over Josh Allen. Better to be in this position than that one, unless Sam Darnold would have been good for you. Or better to have drafted not like Solomon Thomas than Mitchell Trubisky.
Yeah, this has gone as well as it could have gone when you factor in the other quarterbacks and you factor in the trade where we're sitting today with an or between the two guys' names.
Yeah, it's amazing. All right, well said. On that note, later, everybody. Thanks for hanging.
Later.